Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a posing coach and an aspiring esthetician who works at a cosmetic procedure center, even though she previously studied and earned her degree in health studies. And she served in the military, by the way, which we will be discussing. But she found her passion is to help women feel their most confident selves. So she competed in 4 regional shows and earned her pro card at nationals in 2022, which was her 4th national show, after previously receiving last callouts in 2021 at Junior Nats, second callouts at nationals in 2021, and 5th place at North Americans 2022. We both competed there. And I'm excited to have this athlete on. We've got a lot to discuss. And if you are tuning in, check us out on YouTube. We're actually doing a video along with this episode. So head over to celestial_fit to watch the interview. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Brooklin Bade. How are you doing?
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Holy crap, what an intro. That was good. That was real good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes I stumble over my words, and other times I feel like I do a pretty good job. I'm going to put that in like the pretty good job category.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy you're here. I know you've been listening for a long time and you've been a fan, and knowing it's been a motivating factor for you, it's that kind of stuff that actually keeps me going and wanting to do this podcast.
Good. It should. Like I said, I remember when I had did my first prep ever, I was just trying to find ways to get through cardio. That was like just the
Yeah.
hardest thing for me. And just knew a lot of people always liked to just listen to like educational podcasts or just explore in like deep. You can really get super involved in podcasts. And somebody had mentioned Confessions of a Bikini Pro, and I was like, "Ooh, what's this?" And ever since then, man, I've been hooked. So
Aw.
definitely every cardio session you were there with me, if you knew it or not.
That's so cool. That is like the most awesome thing ever. When I hear that, I'm like, shoot, I never would have thought that would be the case, but knowing that I get to like be part of people's preps and improvement seasons and journey is so special. And when I go to shows and people mention it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. But what's the best part is then when those people become guests. So like having you on is super cool for me too, because we get to have that type of discussion, and you know what to expect for the most part with like the openness and just free flowing. So of course, you know the first question, everybody
Right?
should, which is, do you have a ritual or something you think about right before your heel hits the stage?
And of course I knew you were gonna ask this. And at shows, I am a different person. I'm a nervous wreck. I shut down completely and I hate talking. Like I just want to sit on my blanket,
Oh,
put my headphones in, head down, no one talk to me. Like I have to get in the zone. But these last 3 shows I did, I noticed I was a lot more not as stressed, and I was a lot more talkative in the lineup, and I wasn't just like closed off. I was like practicing my posing, trying to, pump up the other girls and like make friends and stuff. So that has evolved a lot, definitely.
love that. I think that when we get more experience, we naturally just, okay, I know what to expect. Or if my tan gets messed up in this way, I know I can fix it. If my bikini happens to move this way, I know I can fix it. So we start to kind of let go, I think, of the initial stressors and recognize that what's left to do is to really just enjoy the day.
Yeah. And I know my coach, she always reminds me, she's like, "You look awesome. you did everything, just have fun. And I'm like, okay, I know all that's true. It's just the having fun part.
Yeah.
It's a little tough for me. I just I stress myself out for no reason. It's a, I don't know. I really don't know why.
Well, your coach has been on this podcast too, actually, a long time ago, back when she was part of a different team. But I think it's super awesome that you guys have such a close relationship. And I'm going to be asking you a little bit about that working relationship. But let's get straight into something that we haven't really discussed on this show, which is autoimmune diseases. So, can you share some of your personal experiences with this and maybe how it's impacted your competing career?
Oh, yes. So back when I was in the military, I had so many digestive issues. Um, I had really bad like sciatic pain that would like go down the back of my legs. So like doing RDLs or anything, it was like no go. Like it was like a almost like a tingling. And this sounds so stupid. But oh, I would get like lower back like cramps during like my time in the month. I would just shut down. I'd be in so much pain to where I was like almost puking. Like it was, I had no idea what was going on. I ended up going to the doctor. If anyone listening has been in the military, you know how military doctors are. Um, they're definitely the type to here's some Advil, get back to work type thing. Um, and I would literally go in there like 2, 3 times a month, just crying. I'm like, I know something's not right. Something is wrong. It just doesn't, I don't feel like myself. I ended up seeing a commercial with Julianne Hough in it, and I only watched it because I love her. And she was talking about endometriosis, and I was like, I have that. I know I have it 100%. So I remember I went back to the doctor and I remember telling her, like, hey, I have endometriosis. What can we do about it? And she's like, there's nothing really you can do about it. And I was like, okay. So I put in a referral to go see a specialist outside of like the military doctors. And I sat down in front of this doctor, had never met him before, and I was bawling my eyes out. And he's like, I think you have endometriosis. And I was like,
Oh, no.
hallelujah. In all of this time too, COVID was going on. I really wanted to prep for my first show, but I knew I couldn't do it feeling the way I did. So that was like the thing that really I was like, okay, let's take care of this. And then I'm hiring a coach. And it's game time, basically. And so I went through and did a laparoscopy where they extracted all of the endometrial tissue that they could see. And TMI, but most of it was not my bowels, which is why I was having so many digestive
Yeah.
problems. So literally 2 weeks after I recovered from that surgery, I reached out to Boss Buddies and talked with Corinne, and we got going right away. And that was the first autoimmune issue. This one's a little tough for me to talk about just because I'm still learning about it. But basically, I don't even remember now anymore if it was a few weeks before North Americans or a few weeks after North Americans, but my body just was not responding. It was so inflamed. I was getting like these crazy rashes on my face, on my legs. My hands would hurt so bad in the gym to the point where I couldn't hold weights anymore. Just getting out of bed in the morning, my hips were so tight, my feet would hurt so bad. And it's like I felt like I was living in like a 90-year-old grandma's body. Like that's how just and I'm like, well, I am in prep. Like maybe it's just taking its toll on me finally. Um, and I remember going to the doctor literally just for like a checkup. And I was telling them the issues that I was having. And they're like, have you had I forget what the blood test is called. I think it's like an AMA or something. But basically, they just check for like autoimmune. That's how they check for like autoimmune and stuff. And one thing came back like flagged. And so they
Mm.
ended up sending me to a lupus specialist. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, there's no way. There's literally no way. I was like, I've heard of lupus, you know. I feel like only people really know about lupus is because Selena Gomez, like that was all over like social media and everything. Um, but sure enough, I had lupus and I was like, that was the worst prep I had gone through because at that point rest was more important than pushing myself even harder doing cardio or going heavier with the weights. It's like I just needed to sleep, get movement in, and do what I can. But that is the best I ever looked, honestly.
Yeah.
So it was weird how it turned out, but moving forward, going into these next shows, I don't know what my preps are going to look like. Because we've only had to prep knowing what we knew for that one show, and that was nationals in Orlando. So yeah, crazy.
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone expects you to know everything about this subject, especially with how new it is. So I appreciate you sharing what you do know and what you have personally experienced with it too and learned because of it. I also really appreciate you being so open about both of those things because I think the endometriosis story is something a lot of people can relate to. And the lupus story, not a lot of people hear about that. And I think it's interesting too because a lot of the symptoms you were experiencing, when we're deep into a prep, and I do remember it was before North Americans for you because when I was prepping this episode, I was trying to put a timeline together. So,
Okay.
yeah, you had posted about how it was really difficult prior to North Americans. You decided to keep pushing, but your body was very inflamed. Everything you just described, and you and your coach had to work with a new body essentially. But you said, if I'm going to have to live with this, that means I want to learn how to prep with this, which I thought was a really beautiful sentiment, by the way, and interesting that you still pursued that goal, and really awesome that you did. I think we'll go back to the endometriosis part and then we'll kind of progress from there. So with the endometriosis diagnosis, I didn't that was an unintentional rhyme, but it sounded kind of nice. But anyway, that's something that's been on my mind a lot because especially when you said pain to the point of almost vomiting. So
Mhm.
recently, I've always had really painful periods, but every woman in my family did. So it's always something that's like it's nothing, that's expected, that's normal. But then, with the progression of, right, like knowledge, social media, you connect with more people, you realize, wait, you're
This
not.
isn't normal. This is
Yeah, like
not normal.
I didn't, yeah, like there's no, how did we survive all these years like with this much pain? Like, and then recently for myself, I had really, and I still do, but I have really terrible periods and I vomited for the first time out of pain. And I had
Yeah.
to cancel a podcast interview. And I mean, I'm not doing that generally. And I remember being like, this is really strange. Like, that's not, I've been in pain before. And I never took pain meds because it's like I was also raised not to take a bunch of pain meds. It's like just you go on. So it's been strange and interesting, but I understand you can't technically have the diagnosis without doing the where they cut you open, the L, it starts with an L, you said it, I forget.
Oh, the laparoscopy. Mhm.
Yes. So what was it that you noticed changed after you did that and after you removed the endo tissue? What did you personally notice change with your cycles as well as your digestive health?
My cycles were so much lighter. I didn't have the tingling. That's another thing. It was on my sciatic around. So I don't, and a lot of people, if you don't know what endometriosis is, it's basically an overgrowth of the tissue that sheds during the time of your period. And there's different stages. And once it gets to a certain stage, like the highest stage, like stage 4, it starts to go to different parts of the body and it can attach to different, I guess, organs. And it obviously starts typically on the ovaries, but mine had progressed so much that it was on my sciatic, it was on my bowels at that point. It was so bad. But what was your question?
Um,
Your
have
question?
Yeah, how did removing it affect you?
Right. So as soon I want to say 2 days after I had that surgery, I was not bloated at all. My stomach, like it's like I almost had abs and I was like, I've never had abs before in my life.
Wow.
Like it was just so crazy to see my body change just because of this one little thing. I had my cramps weren't nearly as bad. I was going to the bathroom regularly, which was like hallelujah, right?
Yeah.
That's no fun. And it's I just felt lighter. That's the best way to put it. I just felt lighter. My mood was it did a complete 180. I feel like I had so much stress and anxiety, not only because I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I just felt gross. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I just felt gross, inflamed, um, all the time. And it wasn't just during my period. It was I would have like the sciatic pain every time I lifted, every time I did cardio. Um, the when you're ovulating, sometimes you get a lot of women get cramps during ovulation. So it's like no matter what time of the month, I was having these issues. And that's when I knew pretty much that there's no way that this is right.
Yeah, I call them phantom cramps, where there's no period, but you're cramping, and it
Hmm.
feels like period cramps, and, I that's been newer, like, I've had that throughout my life, but more predominantly in the last 3 months, it's been consistent, and so I started taking a period, well, I've always tracked my period, but a period diary where I write down, like, all the symptoms and experiences, so then I can share this with my doctor and we can make sure it's not an isolated experience for whatever reason, and then decide from there. But my coach was actually the person who was like, Well, you've never really told me about all these things that you're experiencing." I'm like, Because it's always been normal." He's like, That's not, you need to consider what that might be. And then on top of that, gut health issues and so on. But I'm going to shift it back to your lupus discovery. So that's a really intense thing to find out and have to deal with in prep. How does it work now for you? Like, how does it affect you day to day?
So, okay. The be- So my coach, God bless her, like we are super close. I know you already know that. We are so close. I tell her way too much about my life. And I overshare way too much, but she's like my second mom. Um, but she was just so invested in figuring it out and making it work. She read on like multiple different uh I don't even know, probably online, but
Yeah.
the best thing for not only lupus, but most autoimmune, is to obviously stay away from inflammatory foods. So I have been on an anti-inflammatory diet, but also Mediterranean, mostly pescatarian though. So
Interesting.
I only eat fish. Um, And I have been doing that since I want to say February of this year. I have not had a single issue with lupus at all. And yeah, and my doctors tried putting me on all of this like steroids and lupus medications, and I was like, how is this going to affect like I don't know, my physique? Because I always like to look at the pros and cons, obviously, when you are taking such extreme medications and stuff. And I did decide to take some of the medications. However, I felt way better when I got off of them and
Hmm.
used food as medicine, basically. That sounds very hippie, but like I swear I always say food is medicine, and I truly believe that the pescatarian Mediterranean style is the way to go. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it, but I swear by it.
Hey, you know what? I think that we miss out on a lot of potentially life-changing approaches when we dismiss anecdotal evidence. So, when there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to support a method working, it's worth considering. And generally, that happens before actual research takes place, anyways. So, you having your personal testimony is great. And I think it's always worth a shot, especially when it comes to our health and how we feel. If we can prioritize or change our nutrition, which is a daily choice that as competitors we're generally making anywhere from 3 to 8 times a day, right? Like how we're
Yeah.
feeding ourselves. So if we can control that in a way that can affect how we feel mentally, emotionally, physically, then it's worth a shot. And that's not to say, you're going to come off all your medication or you're never going to need it again, but it's a great effort to make. And it's oftentimes dismissed because it's not pharmacological. And you hear other influencers in the world of autoimmune diseases who will promote carnivore or who will promote only eating one type of food, and they've had to reduce their diet down to such simplicities. Um, and they talk about how it's actually changed their cravings and the way that they. So I was wondering if you could speak to that as well. Like, has it changed your post-show experiences or cravings or things of that nature?
So post show, I don't know yet because, like I said, we just started implementing this in this February. But I, like most competitors, I was absolutely obsessed with caffeine and artificial sweeteners. That's that was like my life, or figuring out ways to make something obviously taste better than what it is through artificial sweeteners. But I have reduced my intake with artificial sweeteners so much. And my meals are just so simple. Like I said, I don't gluten-free oats, whole eggs, whole fruits. I never had fruit in my diet ever. I just was never appealed to it. I don't
Hmm.
know what it was, but I think just incorporating like actual fruits and just simple things like that, and taking out the other things, I don't crave as much like sugar, or feeling the need to eat the fake sugar, not nearly as much. So that has been really good, and I think it'll help too a lot come preps, because sometimes our bodies just don't agree with artificial sweeteners. I probably was one of them. I just didn't I just didn't know it, but
Well, that's super exciting on many levels because we're going to see a new Brooklyn on stage then with a new approach to her health, her body, her nutrition. And that's very intriguing. And I think other competitors, including myself, as we embark on our own different health journeys, and we actually get to see the result of taking care of our health. I was just speaking with someone the other day about how these days in competing are so different than like 2015, 27, even up, I would say around 2018, maybe things started to change more and become more inner focused and more flexible as well in nature. But at least in 2015, it was like it wasn't as popular, it wasn't as competitive as far as like there wasn't as many people competing. So these little things, these nuances weren't really setting you apart. Now it's like we have to dig into the gut health. We have to dig into the internal health. We have to look at what we were previously ignoring, things that keep competitors from being in this game for a long time. Mental health, for example, because it's competitive, now it's being addressed and it can make the difference between like doing really well or not potentially. And I think for you, you found, okay, I rested more. I listened to my body. I honored my health. I walked away with a pro card. It was the best I ever looked. So it's going to be really cool to see what else gets revealed to you in this journey. As unfortunate as it is to go through that, it's a blessing that you've got your answers and maybe more of a insight, although it's gonna be a whole new effort of trial and error with these new variables.
yeah, and it sucked. I've been with the same coach my whole bodybuilding career. Like, and I feel bad more for Corinne, my coach, because she has to like relearn my whole body, because I don't just drop weight as easy as I used to. But then we also have to be careful with, not pushing cardio too hard or not too long. And it's, I don't know. And another thing I was just thinking about, this is totally off the wall random, but
Okay.
like I like, almost every single competitor eats egg whites and stuff, and that's considered an artificial food, and I didn't know that.
Huh.
Did you know that?
All egg whites or just the kind in grocery stores?
A carton of egg whites that we all know and
Okay.
love.
So because they're highly pasteurized or what?
I guess so, but it was messing up my digestion so bad, and it was making me inflamed, and I didn't realize that's what it was until I she ended up giving me whole eggs, and, like,
Yeah.
it just went away completely.
Wow,
So it's
how
so weird.
interesting.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just little things like that we have to relearn and just figure out what works for me again.
Have you ever been told that you can't heal your relationship with food unless you stop competing? Or do you feel like a lost cause because every time you've tried to heal your relationship with food, you're always met with the same challenges, judgment, shame, and guilt? But you're ready to get to that root of your relationship with food and really understand your habits and behaviors and make lasting changes that are going to drive you forward in your competition goals as well as your life. And of course, if you don't want to stop competing in this sport that you love, but you also don't want to continue down the rabbit hole that is setting you back in your life, emotions, and potential for success on stage, I want you to know that you can get through this. And no, you do not have to stop competing in order to do so. You truly deserve to have successful preps, productive improvement seasons, and peace of mind year round. Because when your head is full of thoughts of food, eating, or guilt, you cannot invest that energy into the goals you truly care about, which is a big reason why I launched the 5-week food relationship program and why it has been my most highly demanded program to help competitors like yourself make peace with food so they can pursue the sport they love for the long run without having to worry about sacrificing their mental health. If you want to learn more about this program and hear from others who have done it, then visit www.celestial.fit/foodfreedom. Scroll through that page, get some information, and if you're inspired and you are ready to take action on this, go ahead and apply to work with me, and I will be getting back to you within 24 to 48 hours to go over your application and discuss your concerns specifically to determine if and how I can support you. Again, that is at www.celestial.fit/foodfreedom. Yeah, the relearning process. And as a competitor who has been in this now, you went year after year after year going for it. This is also your first time taking like an extended improvement season.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is, and it is hard. It really is. I didn't think it was gonna be that hard, but I have been struggling probably ever since I got my pro card.
Because you
Um,
want to get back on stage or
yes, but I know I'm not ready. I these if you look at what was rewarded, I don't know, even 2 years ago on the Olympia stage or at all the pro shows, I think most of us, we A, might be really frustrated or B, super confused because is super shredded and jacked winning or is fuller and softer winning? It's like we don't know. Either way, I just don't think I have the muscle that I need to be a competitive pro. And I will have to take as much time as I need because when I come back, I don't want to just compete as a pro. I want to win as a pro. Just mentally, it's like, oh my gosh, I actually have to like rest. I have to build. I haven't had a building phase in a really long time, which back in 2020, I would get told at regional shows that I had too much muscle for bikini.
wow. That was
Yeah,
3 years ago.
I know. And we basically had to break down my physique and like build it back up. And now we have to build it even more back up. So that
Yeah.
has been it's been really frustrating. Even when I did first start with Corinne, um, asked me, she's like, "Hey, I think we might be able to get you on stage a little bit faster if you were to compete in wellness." She's like, "Is that something you'd be open to?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." Absolutely not.
Talk us through why not.
I think at the time I just wasn't. I really don't know. I just had this image of what I wanted to look like, and I knew all of the competitors that I had looked up to, and they were all bikini. And I was like, I want to be bikini. But now just admire wellness girls. They are insane, like absolutely insane. It props to them, but I don't think I would be able to push myself as hard as I would need to go into wellness. I'll stick to bikini for probably the rest of my life.
Hey, random question, how tall are you?
I'm 5 feet tall.
Okay, because the reason I ask is because I think that the latest Wellness Pro, you guys, we're recording this on June 19th, by the way, just for perspective, but I think at Junior Nats, I think the latest Wellness Pro or overall winner, I think she's a little shorty too. I think she looked short to me anyway. I didn't check yet, but I was just curious because I think as far as like wellness versus bikini goes, I have a deep admiration and respect for wellness as well.
Mm.
I personally prefer the look of bikini. And yet on the wellness girls, I'm like, that's amazing. You almost want to look like that in some to some degree, but I also realize like um just in all honesty, like what's required to achieve that level
Mhm.
of muscle and density and hardness on stage is a lot and not just natural. Like some people do it naturally, that's awesome. And that's why this division formed in general. Some people naturally have that look, just like some people naturally have the bikini look. But it doesn't mean unnatural efforts aren't taken to achieve those looks. And I already think when you look at the bikini division alone, there's a standard that can be difficult to achieve naturally in the NPC and the IFBB. So let's talk about that. You ultimately decided you wanted to take the bikini route. You didn't want to go the wellness route. However, you knew you needed to emulate a particular look and you weren't there yet. So, what were some of the steps you had to take to essentially get the pro card winning physique? And then what was the feedback after that you're now working on?
Okay. Oh, this goes back to the Wasatch Warrior. So I did the Wasatch Warrior just kind of as like a F it show. I didn't want to be done for the year. I knew I was going to do national shows later in the year. But I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to be done. So I just kind of jumped into the Wasatch Warrior and I didn't even realize how it was a pro am show. But these amateurs walking around at the Wasatch Warrior, I remember just being like, this is a regional show. Like it looked like a national show just
Yeah.
because of how conditioned and insane these girls looked. And I'm like, what is in the water in Utah over here? Because this is insane. I had never seen any NPC girls look like that at just regional shows. It was so, and then this was also the first show I ever saw pros in person on stage. Just because I just never felt the need to go like just go to a show just to watch. I just never have. And now I really want to, but
Yeah.
I just never had. I don't know why. But I remember they stopped the pre-judging for us amateurs and they brought out the pros.
Right.
And I remember just sitting in the audience. I had already gone because I was class A, but I remember just watching them and I was like, dude, what? Like, it was just amazing to see in person. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I remember after finals and everything, my coach and we ended up going to Taco Bell or something.
Yeah.
And I remember asking her, and I was like, what? How are these NPC girls so conditioned? And I remember her telling me like, well, bikini has changed a lot, over the years. Most likely it's because of PEDs. And I was like, oh, and I knew I'm not oblivious to the whole sport. It was almost like I needed to hear that. I needed that confirmation, especially coming from somebody I love and respect so much too. Um, So I remember we did a little mini reverse and then we planned on doing North Americans. And I remember asking her, I asked her, I was like, hey, do you think I would benefit from taking that route or just trying something just to see how, my body likes it, how I respond, what's going to be the outcome of it. And I remember um she's like, we can talk about it. And we jumped on a FaceTime call. And I was actually nervous to talk to her about it, which is weird because, like I said, we're so close. And I didn't want her to look at me different as, I don't know, a person or an athlete. And she's like, is this something that you really want to do? And I was like, I think so. I feel like I didn't really know too much about it, just the fact that I don't want to say everyone's doing it, but
Yeah.
it's out there. No one talks about it that much, but I feel like we don't really need to talk about it. Well, we should, but I feel like everyone just kind of knows, you know. So um we had that conversation. She was so sweet about it. She told me, the pros, the cons, and everything. And the feedback that I was getting at national shows was the conditioning is there, but you need to be fuller. You need to be fuller. Um, Mostly fuller glutes, which I'm sure all of us have heard at one point, one point in our life, competitor life. Um, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Screw it. And honestly, I don't regret it. I don't. And it really was game changing for me. It might not be for others, but I liked the outcome, the outcome
Yeah.
of it. I am not somebody who is naturally super lean. So for me to chase that conditioning, I sacrifice, that muscle fullness. And I tend to look dieted, over dieted, or a little bit flat on stage. Um, but going back to hearing my feedback from regional shows, so it's saying I had too much muscle, it was just very like contradicting everything in my head. But I was like, okay, you don't listen to them, listen to the national judges because they're the ones that will make or break you.
Right.
So yes, she was, like I said, she's just very kind and sweet about all of it and very supportive. And it's good to have a coach that knows, again, the pros and cons, that can teach you about it and know how to do things in a safe way. One thing that um, I've heard before is, you can come home every day from work and have a glass of wine with dinner. That doesn't make you an alcoholic. But if you come home from work and slam a whole bottle of whiskey over time, yeah, that can have a lot of effect on you in your body, and make you an alcoholic, right? Same thing with PEDs. If you are abusing it, not using the right protocols, or just not taking it as serious as you should, then yes, the outcomes of it are going to be that you're not going to be in it for the long run because your body's not going to be able to keep up and you will have health risks in the end, as we all know. Um, so that is why I am glad that she was so supportive and knowledgeable, and just we did everything very cautiously.
I love that. That was so eloquently explained and shared, like your journey to making that decision too, because it's encouraging a thoughtful decision making process for those who want to go down that route or who are considering it. And it emphasizes the importance of having a coach who does understand it and who can help you through that as well. And I love your emphasis on mindfulness with the usage, so as to protect yourself and your body. And while I'm not super well versed in that, I can appreciate that message and appreciate that sentiment that you're sharing with others because, as you said, we can't deny the fact that it exists. in the industry, we also can't deny the fact that it's more prominently being used than not. Similarly to you, I had someone I really respected and loved give me the reality check that most are, and I was like shocked, like, what do you mean? But then again, like, I was still pretty new as far as like what I thought or believed, and I think you want to, when you're a natural competitor too, you want to believe that's what you can do. And so, not saying you can't, because I intend to do my best to try, but
Exactly.
we have to be mindful of the fact that like there are other things. And I even brought up to my coach, I'm like, I'm putting my body through so much to compete naturally. Like, I wonder if this is worse for me than if I was. Do you know what I'm saying?
Literally my same thought. I'm at like a 2-hour cardio, like
No.
no matter what. Like I'm a cardio queen when it comes to preps. And I know I'm like, dude, is this like worse than than like actually taking? Yes, I
Yeah,
totally get that. Totally
right?
get that.
So I appreciate you sharing like your process to that. And I am curious now, like you said that you're not where you need to be to compete at the level you want to compete as a pro. You want to go out there, compete, and win. I'm assuming a pro with that mentality has the goals of being on the Olympia stage one day.
I never thought I would ever have this dream to be on the Olympia stage because obviously when you are an amateur, you you have one goal and one focus, and that's obviously to become a pro. So once I finally got that, I was like, "Oh shit. Like what now?" Like I was like, "Well, I think I was just so shocked after getting my pro card for a good month or 2. I was like, I need to reevaluate like my goals basically. And I know pros that compete for years as a pro and don't come close to the Olympia stage. And that's okay. They're just doing it because they absolutely love it. But for somebody who is really competitive, and I like to set high standards just for myself because why not? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I definitely would love to try to qualify to go to Olympia. Absolutely. That's that's the new dream. And it sounds crazy even me saying that, but yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. I love that you're vocalizing it for yourself because I was like, you can't be this competitive and not probably have a dream of that nature.
Yeah. And it's like I said, I never thought I would have this dream, but here we are talking about it and it's mind blowing still.
I like to think of it like when you're progressing in anything, new progressions appear. Like, oh, you finally are putting shoes on yourself, you're wearing Velcro, but then you see someone's tying their shoes, and you're like, I want to tie my shoes because then I can wear all those shoes. And then you're putting those shoes on, and you're a little girl, and you're like, well, I kind of want to try heels because so there every I think progression reveals a new opportunity for growth, which is very natural of the human spirit to strive. We are
Yeah.
fulfilled by striving, and that's our nature, is to strive, and that allows multiple moments of self-actualization and fulfillment. So I think it's awesome that you're pursuing that, and I'm actually wanting to now go back in time to when you left the military to pursue competing. So let's talk about that journey, like being in the military, maybe extending your time in the military, but then choosing competing.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, jeez Louise. Like I told you before we started recording, this feels like a lifetime ago for me because so much has changed and I've grown so much and done so much just since separating. I got out in, I think I told you 2020,
20.
but I think it was 2021.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was 2021. That's crazy to even like it's
It's
2023.
only
Oh my
2 years
gosh.
ago, but so much
Oh
can
my
happen.
gosh. Yeah, so much. So I don't even remember the question because I'm so shocked. How was the the transition?
Yeah, so talk to us about life when you were Brooklyn, who's gonna pursue the military, to Brooklyn fell in love with competing and is leaving military for bodybuilding.
Okay. So I remember I graduated high school and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life at all. And my dad was in the Navy and he joined right after high school. And hearing his stories and how many friends he made, and he just got that time to, I don't kind of figure himself out. Um, I kind of said, screw it. I don't have nothing to lose, really. My mom was not happy about it, but my dad was all for it. But yeah, I joined the Air Force. And I think once I was in the military and seeing surprisingly how out of shape some people were, it really kind of motivated me. I wasn't a good runner at all, was not a good runner, especially we have like our like physical exams and stuff. And like I was barely passing. And that really made me like surprised because I had gotten out of shape. I did track when I was in high school. I was a competitive cheerleader, a competitive gymnast. And so like that time when I wasn't doing sports and then like getting in the military and like the only standard was to run like a mile, like it really made me like realize like I need to get back into shape. And I fell absolutely in love with the gym. Um, Going back to high school, I would just scroll and scroll and scroll on Instagram and I would find YouTubers of these bikini girls vlogging like their
Yeah.
preps and stuff. I was so obsessed, but deep down, I was like, there's no way I could ever get my body to look like that.
Mm.
There was just so much self doubt, but I don't I don't know what made me just say, "Screw it, I'm doing it," but I lifted. I wanted to make sure I had a good solid foundation of muscle before going into a cut. I knew that much, and I knew
That's
how to.
a lot. I wish I knew
Yeah.
that much when I started.
I knew. I knew that, um, and I learned I just was trying to be a sponge. I was trying to soak up as much information as I could when it came to, macros, eating. I tried like carb cycling, fasting, like I tried everything to see how it worked. And like I said, I was out of shape. But after I learned how to like track macros, know how much movement I need to main gain, I guess, or just progressive overloading. That was a big thing for me to wrap my head around. I was like, what's progressive overloading? But once it all tied together and it just made sense to me, that's when I saw such amazing results. And I wanted to put myself in a good position to start a prep, like going through that surgery, um, making sure I wasn't, like too fat to prep or anything. But I did my first show while I was in. It was in the middle of COVID, but it was right when shows started to finally like come back, I guess. So it was like towards the end of COVID, I suppose. Um, and I did my first show. I had no idea what I was doing. I got moved to center. And my first show had no idea what that meant. I remember my coach was like so excited when I got off stage and I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened? But I think after that first show, and then going into the second show, my second show was Samson, and that was the first time I had gotten second, and I was like, and that was just like a fire under my butt. I was like, I want to win them all. We cannot win them all, but we can sure as hell try, right? Um, but I had originally gotten orders to go to Germany. And I think that was the big like, oh my gosh, there aren't a ton of overseas shows. Now that I know more about the sport, there's a ton. But I was like, it's gonna be so hard. Like I was like, I just want to compete. I just want to compete. I want to focus on competing and getting my life together, come up with a plan for when I get out. And I had no plan when I got out, but, I'm glad because I wouldn't be in the situation that I am now, and I am just truly so happy. But, yeah, I think, getting that 2nd place, I was like, "No, I want to win all the time," and I was like, "That's it, I'm so hooked, it's not even funny anymore." I was like, "I wanna do this, and I wanna be good at this."
Wow. Did you have that same passion ever before in your life?
No. I
Wow.
didn't. And it's, like I said, I was a competitive cheerleader. That's a team sport. Yes, track and gymnastics are individual sports, but I don't think I was mature enough to have such a deep passion for something like that. The mentality wasn't there. It was just like, yeah, I do this sport. I'm okay at it, but I don't think I was ever truly passionate about it like I am bodybuilding. That's all there is to it. Like, I can't even explain my passion for this sport. It's just there. And it just came literally out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, you had some really, like, positive first experience, so that's awesome. And then being faced with a 2nd place after that, it's like, no, I gotta fight for this now."
And it's so funny because Sam Patrick Samson.
Yeah.
I love him to death. But I remember talking to him at that show, and he's like, "You looked amazing." And I was like, "Well, thank you." And I said, "I'll be back next year." And he's like, "Okay." And I came back and I won the I won
I
the
love it.
overall. Yeah, like I said, that was the mentality I had. I was like, "I'm going to do it. This is gonna happen." And that's all there is to it.
That's awesome. I've done one of his shows. I did the ASA stage. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was cool in 2020. I was just grateful to be on a stage, and he's a very nice man. And I liked how they did their athlete check-ins too for that show. It was good.
Samson shows are the absolute best. Patrick, if you're listening to this, we freaking love you. Like, your shows are amazing, and he's just so thoughtful. I love the motto "athletes first" because he
Yeah.
truly puts every single athlete first. Like, I remember makeup was running behind, and he was like, "The bikini is not starting until like these girls are done."
I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome. I think a positive show experiences maintain the excitement in the sport too. So giving props and credit where it's due to promoters and to those who are really passionate about the sport, even if they're no longer competing or aren't competing, and who really respect athletes and get it, is amazing because it helps people like us keep going because we see that we're valued and our investment into something we're passionate about and excited about is honored through a great show production. And I think that's really cool about this industry is we get to celebrate each other's hard work and diligence over the years. Like you literally returned a year later making so much progress and then ultimately went on to take it all the way to your pro card, which is super cool. And you probably heard me in the intro talking about your different placings, and I did that for a specific reason. I like to ask and mention placings because I think there's people who maybe they place low consistently in a national level show and they start to question if their time will ever come. Did you ever have doubts after a few last call outs or second call outs?
When you just said, wondering if your time will ever come, I literally just got chills over my body. Like, it was, yeah, for sure. I kept having this mentality that I didn't belong there and that I was never going to be able to do it. And looking back now, I feel like I did go pro really fast. I just, like I said, I like to set standards super high for me, which is a blessing and a curse
Mhm.
because you can easily let yourself down and get discouraged from that. But yes, I remember I did junior nationals. Um, and yes, that was my first national show. And I was like, what if I got my pro card at my first national show? That I don't
Yeah.
even know what was going through my mind. But um looking back, it's crazy because looking back, I was like, I was so tiny. It's not I was so itty bitty. I did not deserve that pro card that I so badly wanted. I did not. Um, but yes, I remember getting either third or fourth call outs. Truly want to say I got like dead last. And it was like a slap in the face. And I remember I being just so discouraged, but also it lit another fire under my ass because I was nonstop since then. Like go, 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 go. Um, and I was like, I'm gonna get it. I have to get it. But then I did um nationals that same year, and I ended up getting like third call outs. And I was like, well, I guess that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Better than fourth call outs. I remember the A classes were just ginormous. I'm like,
Yeah.
these short girls are taking over because I had never seen so many girls in a class ever. I want to say at North Americans there were 45 girls in my class.
It was a big class.
And it was massive. We were posing for like 30 minutes. It was on stage. Sandy's like, I didn't know what to do. Okay, but anyway, going back to so yes, fourth call outs, third call outs, um, or maybe it was third, then second call outs. I don't remember. I try to like bury that memory in the
Yeah.
back of my mind. It's very dark times. No, I'm glad. I'm glad that it all happened because I didn't deserve it then. But then going into North Americans, that again, like we talked about earlier, that was my first time as not being a natural athlete. Um, and I don't want, when I say this, I don't want people to think like, oh, that's it, that's the answer. Like, it's not for everybody, and everybody, benefits differently from taking that type of thing. But my physique had never looked like that ever, and I was so confident on stage. That's another thing I think I was truly missing, is I didn't feel like I belonged on stage at the national shows, and you could see it. You could see it all over my face. My posing was rushed. Very bouncy. It just didn't flow. I was just very scared, and I was scared of making myself look like an idiot.
Mm.
And I don't know why I was so worried about that. I don't. And but at North Americans, my parents also got to be there and see me for
Oh,
that was the first time they had gone to a national show.
wow.
And just getting fifth call out, or not fifth call outs. I got fifth. So I got first call outs finally. And I was like, no way. I did that. I got first call outs finally. And I remember even looking down at my number because I registered late for that show, so my number was, like, way different than the other girls in my class.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you know how they call them like, in order, they'll be, like,
Right.
246, 248. My number was something crazy like 1,063. And, I remember hearing that, and I was like, I looked down and I was like, yeah, I'm the only 1,000 number. And I was like, just so shocked. But then when they had us posing up there for over, like, it probably was not 30 minutes, but it felt like forever. I didn't get moved in. And I was like, you know what? I got off stage crying, and Corinne's like, "What is wrong?" And I was like, "I'm so happy."
Oh,
And I was like, I guess validation, that maybe I can do this. And I remember we stayed. Did you stay and talk to Sandy that night?
yeah, girl. I was like ready to get right in line, thankfully. It actually was really quick for me because I somehow got maybe like 20th or 30th in line, so it wasn't too long.
Oh my goodness. We were like in the back, and then my parents were there, and then I was also waiting with my coach, and I don't live in the same state as my parents, so I don't get to see them like
Yeah.
ever. So, but I remember I was like, "Hey, you stay in line. I'm gonna go eat with my parents, and then I'll come back." And she's like, "Okay." And sure enough, she didn't even move in line like
You're
at all.
kidding.
No, we went and had some burgers and then I came back. But my feedback, I'm glad that I heard this in person, because Sandy had said this was actually the first time I had talked to her in person after or since junior nationals.
Well,
So if anyone knows me from junior nationals, the old Brooklyn, I had bleach blonde hair.
yeah.
And the first time I ever had talked to Sandy, she basically told me to dye my hair.
Really?
Yeah. She's like, "You have a good look." She's like, "I just don't like your overall look." And she's like, "Your hair looks not good on stage." She said, "I think you'd look good with dark hair." And she told me that back in 2021. She told me that in 2021. So when I got to her at North Americans to talk to her, I showed her, I said, "Do you remember this girl?" And she's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Do you like my hair now?" And she goes, "Oh my God." She's like, "You look like a pro." And I was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "What's my feedback?" Because
I want to be a pro.
I want to be a pro. Yeah, exactly. And she's like, "Change nothing." She said, "Bring in a little bit fuller glutes." And I was like, shit, I wasn't going to do nationals, but now I really want to. My body, I didn't know if my body was going to be able to keep it together for a few more months. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. But she was just so shocked. She's like, "I cannot believe you actually dyed your hair." And I was like, "Yeah, I told you I want this more than anything." Um, but no, I needed her to see that how I guess just how serious I was about this. Um, she even told me to change my suit color too, which is how I went dark and then the red suit.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Um, but I remember she even told me, she's like, "You should do nationals." I was like,
Now
"Okay."
I gotta do it if she says
Now I
to.
gotta do it. Exactly. And I'm really I'm so thankful I did. Because who knows? I probably would be taking half the year off and then competing again this year. But nope. Now I need to grow.
Yep. Now you get your full improvement season and you get to focus on entering the pro league. And it's awesome to have had that feedback and to have gotten that after earning your pro card. So you know, like, okay, or before earning your pro card, I mean, now I know what it takes to become a pro. And then you, of course, won your pro card. So now you're working to build into your pro season. And in the meantime, not just growing, but you're also focusing on your posing business. You're working somewhere completely different and unrelated to your studies. So I was actually curious what shifted for you mentally to want to pursue not just posing coaching, but also as becoming an esthetician, rather than what you studied originally, which was health studies.
Okay. I just like to meet with girls on Instagram. It's nothing too serious. However, I have become obsessed with posing, just because of how horrible I was at it. Again, it
Yeah.
was something I wanted to be good at. And once I finally got it down, I was just like, okay, maybe I can help, other girls that have the
Yeah.
same issues that I did. But yeah, that is something I would like to get bigger and going. It's just which direction I want to go with it. But when it comes to the esthetician side of things, I have always been someone who was obsessed with makeup and skincare and things like that, and also taking care of my skin. Since the lupus diagnosis, honestly,
Hmm.
it has formed my interest, I guess, in it a lot, because there are different things that you can do to reduce, the inflammation and the redness and the rashes that we get are not fun. Um, but also just seeing and hanging out with the lovely people over at LeBeau Beauty. I'm sure you've had your makeup done by them.
I haven't actually.
What? You have
Yeah.
not gone through? You
Yeah.
need to go through LeBeau. They are Amazing. They're absolutely amazing. But I would absolutely love to kind of get on the competition side of things when it comes to
Oh,
makeup. Just since always having that interest and then seeing how important it is in the bodybuilding world, I don't know, just sparked my interest, and I'm starting to go back to school for that this summer. So
wow.
I'm excited to see where that goes, and hopefully maybe one day I'll be doing your makeup for
Hey,
a show. I don't know.
that would be awesome. I think it's super cool how you went from high school, don't know what I'm gonna do with my life, so I'll follow in my dad's footsteps and join the military to well, the military means I gotta be fit or fitter so I can pass these physical tests. Oh, I love the gym now. I am reigniting this competitive spirit from a young age that wasn't as strong as it is now. Falling in love with competing, pursuing it fully, walking away from your military career to pursue something you're really actually truly passionate about. It's like you had to go through a lot of those steps to find ultimately what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I earlier you had asked like why bodybuilding kind of, and
Mhm.
it has just shaped so many different parts of my life because like you had just said, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was not the best student in high school. I liked to party and, go out drinking and stuff like that. And now I don't even drink. It's just crazy to see how much this sport has evolved my life, and just myself personally has shaped me for the better. And I think a lot of people that happens to a lot of people who start competing and dive into it. It just shapes your life, and it makes you look at things a little bit more differently too, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It gives you a discipline. It gives you this delayed gratification and the ability to sustain that and actually see there's more worthiness in the pursuit than generally the outcome anyways, because nothing is guaranteed in this sport but our work ethic and how we show up. So that's really gratifying in itself. And I would be regretful if I didn't ask you about your mental health because this is something that had come up in our pre-conversation. So share with us like the impact it's had on mental health and maybe different things that have come up over your journey that you've had to maybe overcome or make peace with.
Yes. So this one actually kind of ties into a question that you asked earlier. I don't think I answered it because I got my degree in health sciences.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to school to be a surgical technologist.
Oh.
And being in the medical fields, there are a lot of things that I just truly don't agree with. Um, like the way, you know, doctors treat people that are below them, or just the way surgeons are. And that's not to talk bad on doctors and surgeons. You all are amazing. It's just when you are in that type of environment, seeing the things that kind of go on, um, mentally, it can have a little bit of an effect on you and it trigger some past traumas that I have struggled with. So when it comes to mental health, I have always been somebody that has just suffered from anxiety and depression. And I think bodybuilding has pulled me out of that a little bit, but it has also put me in that position. So once I was going to school, I remember I had just done a show, and we weren't allowed to. This sounds so dumb now that I'm talking about it out loud. We weren't allowed to wear like long sleeves under our scrubs, whatever. Like, I don't know, but you could see how vascular I was. And I remember this guy was in my class, was like talking shit about me basically, and saying like how that's so manly and disgusting and all this stuff. And um I was like, wow, like Imagine, like, just saying that about somebody when, again, you love something so much, and, like, there's other people that obviously look at that and they hate on it. And so, like, mentally, I was like, "How can you do that?" But I get it, like, not everyone agrees with the sport and everything, but then it goes back to, the trauma that I had in the military. I was, sexually assaulted, and I think being in that environment and then going into a new career fields, you're already seeing the red flags in that environment. And I just truly wanted to separate myself from that because it was just going down a slippery slope. And I think I kept having, and then again with the lupus thing and having the endometriosis things go on, it's always like, why me? Why me? I just want this one thing, like, poor me. And you cannot have that mentality. And again, I think everything happens for a reason because I think it shaped me into the athlete I am today, the person I am today, the friend that I am today. I just think like past traumas have shaped and evolved me so much, and now I'm putting it into things that I'm good at, and that did not come out like how I wanted it to at all, but I don't know how to explain it. The mental health, it's just school sucked. People were mean to me. The military was not fun. People were mean to me. Um, Past traumas and triggering things. I just had to get out and do what was best for me. And I think being in the esthetician side of things, you're going to deal with a lot more women, and it'll be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. As I was listening, I'm like, okay, what are some of the themes coming out of what she's sharing? And one was hierarchical structures, right? Existing in fields that are more hierarchy based or tend to
Mhm.
adopt that type of mentality. Granted, life is hierarchical in nature. However, like we choose what environments we put ourselves in that subscribe to more dominant frames of that.
That's exactly what I was trying to get. It's the environmental thing. And I kept putting myself in those situations. And I get like, you don't know what's going to come out of that. But it was just, like I said, triggering post traumas that I still hadn't gotten over. Um, and another thing with lupus comes depression. You can't get anxiety and depression alone, and thyroid problems. And thyroid, we all know that that's very important to hormones and the way our bodies function. And I think it just all of it just kind of tied together. And I just couldn't, I had to just decide what was best for me and which direction I wanted to go. I said, well, I can either just deal with it and hope that it gets better, or what if it gets worse? And then I'm miserable. And then I just pursued this career that I absolutely hate and wasted 4 years of my life. I don't know, but it is what it is.
Well, I had Megan Long on, and she had said like you can't heal in the environment that hurt you, and I thought that was a salient point that exists here as well. And the other thing that I kind of think too is you can recognize you were a victim of things that were unfair and had nothing to do with you, right? Like you didn't choose to go through sexual assault, you didn't choose to be bullied, you chose to be in those environments. That doesn't mean it was your fault or your responsibility. But at the same time as being a victim, you can then either choose to adopt a victimhood mentality or a triumphant, I'm an overcomer mentality. And you persistently have overcome many things in your life. And you've chosen to take responsibility in ways that make sense and pursue the things that make you feel good and happy and put you in the position to heal and be your best self versus maybe repeating or maybe potentially exposing you to too much too soon post trauma. And I think that's admirable and something to be really proud of yourself for, which I can tell that you are proud of yourself for that. And I'm sure there's people who are identifying with pieces of your story. And I just think it's really cool how you can acknowledge what you went through wasn't right. What you went through isn't something anyone should have to go through. However, you also can overcome the impact of that and pursue something greater for yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, and like I said earlier, yes, you can have the "why me? Why did this happen to me?" mentality, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world because it has made me appreciate things and have a different outlook on things, and I think it put me in the right direction, to move forward and be happy doing so. So, I am thankful for all of it.
Yeah, I love that. I sometimes it's like so hard when it's fresh. Like I remember going through some fresh trauma and people are like, well, this happened for a reason, there's reason. I'm like, there is nothing that could justify, nothing good that could justify this bad that I've experienced. But
Mhm.
then as you separate yourself from it, you heal from it, you realize it can't change. You realize you cannot go back in time and change things as much as you might like to and wish to, and learn the lesson some other more pleasurable way. And you begin to just find some gratitude for what it did teach you or bring you in your life, or maybe paths it led you down or perspectives it brought you. And not ever that you would wish to go through that pain or think others need to, but it's something that you personally realize, now it's part of my story. I can't technically change this. So how do I make the story have meaning that I appreciate for my life?
Yes, exactly. Um, I know I feel like once I was going through all of that and, dropping out of school, I was like, "What am I doing? Like, this is so dumb." But I was like, I it just made me realize much more bigger than all of that stuff. And I didn't I don't think I truly wanted to be in the medical field anyways. I think since I had those, autoimmune issues, I had an issue getting a diagnosis from with endometriosis and things like that. I was like, well, I want to be the change. I want to specialize in women's health. So women's pain can be taken more seriously. Just unfortunately, the road or the process into getting, into school, starting school, I didn't realize how much I wasn't interested in it, let alone the environment to be triggering. So I don't know.
And the beautiful thing is, you're still
Yeah.
making a powerful, positive impact, advocating, supporting, living through example and through your story. And
I'm so sorry.
that's okay. And that's going to make an impact too. Just like how, I mean, you probably are making even more of an impact this way, pursuing what you love versus having done that and being in an environment you weren't happy to be in. So I think that it's powerful what you've done. It's powerful what you're doing. I'm excited to see what is next for you in your personal life as well. So that's very exciting. But before we wrap things up, can you share your best advice for someone who has never competed before but would like to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
Yes. So somebody who is getting ready or thinking about competing, make oh, there's just so much. It's like what- um make sure mentally you're ready. Make sure you're mentally and physically in a good spot health wise because even if you think you are, later down the road, you might not be. So it's important to, do the blood work, make sure everything is good, listen to your body and see how you feel before even taking that next step. If you are on the road to pro, stop comparing yourself to others because I did that for 4 years straight. And it hurt me more mentally than it did. Um, you know, that is something that I definitely struggled with is stop comparing yourself to others. Your story is going to be a lot different. Your journey is so much more different. Your body is so much more different. Stop comparing yourself to others. Focus on you. Put your head down and work.
Beautiful. I love that, especially because all those things you did, and it's a full circle moment of so much of what we discussed today. And I want people to continue the conversation with you offline, off of the podcast. So, how can they connect with you, maybe even work with you or follow your journey?
I only app I use is Instagram. My Instagram is Brooklyn's Life. Brooklyn's with an I, not a Y. Brooklyn's Life. Um, Yeah, like I said, that's the only social media I really use. I have some fire, playlist on Spotify if you wanna hop over to my Spotify. It's just my name, Brooklyn Babe.
Yes, awesome. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this on the podcast in a long time, you guys, but there is a Confessions of a Teen Pro athlete playlist on Spotify that all the athletes who come on the show are invited to contribute to after they've been on. So, Brooklyn, you will get a link to add your stuff to that playlist. But yeah, that's on Spotify as well. And so I hope you'll add some of your favorites. And then, of course, everyone will check you out, Brooklyn's Life on Instagram and Brooklyn Bade on Spotify. And I appreciate you just coming on here, being so open. And I'm going to make sure all the show notes are on celestial.fit/podcast. You guys, if you're listening right away, her episode's going to be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. So you will not just see the links, but you're also going to see a full summary of the episode, like a written summary that you would find on the back of a book. You will find a bulleted list of topics covered, and you'll find all the episode timestamps so you can go back to listen to your favorite parts or share certain clips with your friends or others you want to get inspired by this episode as well. So thank you guys so much for listening and for sharing. And Brooklyn, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
You are welcome, and hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.